Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Single Sounds. I am your host, Katie Mack. And if you're new around here, I usually interview singles of London, and you, as the listeners of this show, can write in to date my guests. It is a fun audio version that is an alternative to dating apps. And I'm very excited this week as it's Glastonbury week, where I am hosting a singles mixer. I randomly started this on TikTok and the traction was so good. So I am so excited to meet everyone that said they will come. But also it's 1 month until the live show in London as well. So there's just so much going on this summer and I'm so excited. Single hot summer. If you are coming to Glastonbury this week, we are meeting at 5 p.m. at the Avalon Inn on Thursday, and Tony Bowen found my TikTok and messaged to say he is playing a human jukebox set and is taking song requests, so DM myself or Tony for those. But if you can't make Glastonbury, the London live show is on the 24th of July in Oxford Circus, so get tickets to watch some live blind date matchmaking. Tickets for this are in the show notes or on my socials. Main page is on Instagram at Single Sounds. As it is the last week of the month, it is our dating expert episode, and I am really excited about this one because our guest Jillian has flown all the way from California to be in the studio with me today in person. Jillian is the founder of Clara for Daters, which is an app that helps you track your dates by asking helpful questions post-date to help you make better choices, particularly in the early stages of dating where it can be quite hard to know if you should see them again. It is absolutely no secret that I have been dating this year, and Jillian is also single herself and uses her own app. Therefore, naturally, I was so excited to sit down with Jillian after using the app for several months myself to share our experiences of date tracking and multi-dating. Also, excitingly, Single Sounds is now on Fountain, which is a podcast app with 4 million shows. And essentially, you can build playlists, earn rewards, and give back to the creators you want to support. The link to download Fountain is in the show notes, so you can start earning and giving rewards by listening to your favorite podcasts, aka listen. Hey Jillian, welcome to Single Sounds.
Hi.
And welcome to London. You're not normally here.
Yes.
So exciting.
Yes, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, for being in London. This is day one, so I'm so happy to spend it with you.
Yes, yeah. You were like second day. I was like 10 a.m. You're gonna be here. I got you early. But yeah, I'm so excited for this conversation. I love Clara for Daters. I think it's such a good idea. I am on a big dating journey at the moment. I'm doing a lot of dates, a lot of multi-dating, so it's perfect for me. But also I think a lot of my listeners, like a lot of people are interested in dating intentionally. So let us know what inspired you to create Clara for Daters and an app for tracking dates. It's such an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And I do get a lot of people saying tracking dates, a little Black Mirror-ish, right? Yeah. But, it's something that came out of a necessity for me. I'm also on my own dating journey. And the history of it was I was in a relationship for 3+ years, and I had every intention of making this the person that I was going to be with forever. Yeah. And unfortunately, I found out that he'd been cheating on me the whole time. No. So that was really just devastating. And I was kind of at a loss on how am I going to figure out how to go back into dating after that. Yeah,
it's so hard.
Right? Because when you experience that kind of trauma, it's like...
Yeah, your trust is broken.
Well, it's not only trust in other people, it's honestly trust in yourself. Like, I didn't...
choose, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so bad at this. Like, why did I let this happen? Like, and I know it wasn't my fault. Yeah. Like, obviously, it wasn't. But there were things that I was uncomfortable with early on in the relationship that I didn't like pay as much attention to as I should have, right? Those early red flags. And that really stuck with me when I started like reflecting on my whole like journey and how I got there. So when I started to figure out after that year of healing, after the breakup, I was like, all right, well, how am I going to start dating again? And I needed to, because for me personally, I want to be in a committed, exclusive relationship and I want to have kids. Like it's important to me, all those things and intentionally. But I was just so scared that I was going to do it again. So I tried to do everything that I could to learn how to date better, because I really didn't have a lot of experience dating. I had gotten into this relationship, which was like pretty quickly after a couple years out of college, and I was doing that. So I wasn't really knowing how to date a lot during college. I was very focused on studies. I was an executive in automotive. I was very focused on then business afterwards and just moving forward. So I really didn't have a lot of experience dating. So then afterwards, after this experience, I was like, all right, let me learn how to date a little bit. And the wonderful thing is there's so many books and resources and dating coaches out there that are just wonderful. They really are. I know
my whole weekly schedule is just dating podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. And you listen and you're just trying to hear everything and soak it in, and just, it's wonderful. Great stuff. I saw that you read the book, How Not to Die Alone. Yeah. That one's a great
Logan's
one.
Book. It's
There's
so good.
So many great ones. But my problem was I read all these books and I listened to all these podcasts, and then I was like, okay, now I know. I graduated, I studied, I did all the work.
Yeah.
But then I go on a date, right? And then the guy is super cute, very attractive, and then I just start ignoring again all the things that I should not be ignoring, right? It's hard to go back to the book and be like, oh wait, what did Logan say about this? I need to go and apply this when I'm so attracted to the guy. Yeah. So I was like, this isn't working for me. And honestly, I compare it a lot to working out or nutrition a lot, because it's the same thing. You can read a book about how to eat healthy. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you have to do it. You have to do it consistently over time under different circumstances. And that's what I needed. I needed something to kind of hold me accountable.
Yeah. And it's tracking your calories.
Exactly.
I like that. Yeah.
So then I was like, all right, well, let me start tracking what I'm doing. And a lot of my users and daters out there, they're already doing it. They did it in an Excel sheet.
Yeah, I do have an Excel sheet.
Yeah, they did it in their notes in their phone. They're intentional. They recognize that they need to be thoughtful about it. But the problem with me, again, when I started dating someone who I was really attracted to, then the Excel sheet would go blank for a couple days, right? Or a couple weeks. And then I would start ignoring it. Or the journal, I would only write the positive things. So I was thinking, okay, well, with an app, I might be able to be more honest with myself and honest with what was going on. So that's how it kind of got created. I had a friend who was a website designer. He was also a gamer. So we did some fun, let's figure out how this works. I wanted to really make some mental health aspects into it, bringing psychology into the app. And that's kind of how the vibe check questions work, is asking 10 questions post-date and making sure that you feel relationally safe, physically safe, chemistry, values, all those things kind of align. And then the questions change. So those set of 10 questions after the first date, they're going to be completely different from date 5 with that
really
same person. That. Yeah. And my goal is to really expand that over time, really get them
more
tailored to each user and then each experience. Because for example, me, I'm a straight female seeking an exclusive monogamous relationship, right? But someone else who maybe is, a male gay who wants a polyamorous relationship, that's going to be something different, and those questions will look different. But the reality is, Clara can be used with either user because both of those people are seeking healthy connections, if they're just one at a time or whatever that looks like. Yeah. But both users can use the app.
Yeah, so it's really your own experience and your journey that got you to think, okay, how can I learn from my ongoing dates, I guess?
Yeah, and be accountable to it.
Yeah.
For now, I've been so Clara launched February of 2023.
Okay.
So it's been a year. So now it's in the UK as of this week. But
you can get downloading.
Yes, but it has been in the US for a minute, and I've logged 54 dates since then.
Nice.
Yeah.
So wow, that's so good. That's basically one a week.
Exactly.
For you. Yeah. And amazing.
And that's my goal, is to try to keep going on these dates, and people are like, oh my gosh, that's so many. And the reality is, most people don't understand like how many dates it does take to get to that person. So it's not a lot.
I mean, I think Talia's was 60 something before she met her fiance. Like there's loads of examples of people that have been really open and honest about that, to say, you know, like, I have done 50, 60, whatever dates it takes to get to that person.
Yeah.
But also I think people forget that's not 54 people.
Exactly.
That's like multiple dates.
Correct.
With like maybe like one person got 10 dates, you know.
Correct.
Like,
and that's exactly right. Yeah. I had a couple people who got more than 4 dates. So those kind of went into those. But no, I didn't have any relationships that came out of this last year. However, I feel so much better because I feel like I'm really understanding what I'm looking for. I'm choosing people and the connections that I want to be, that I want to choose, not that like chemistry or whatever is kind of like pushing me to choose. Right. And my behavior's changed and shifted on who I'm choosing. So I'm recognizing like, okay, this is someone who's exciting and there's thrill and all this other stuff, but maybe a little anxiety mixed in, maybe a little, for me, a little self-worth seeking, like people pleaser. Maybe that's the kind of category I get into, as opposed to like learning what it feels like to be with someone who really likes me and is like safe, and that how good that feels to be with that person. So my behavior shifted in that too, which feels really good.
Yeah, honestly, I get that. So this year, so I've only started dating in February, so it hasn't been that long. Yeah. And I've dated 9 different people.
Wow.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm finally picking the people that feel safer. Like, they reassure me. They're really consistent with their messaging, and also planning in like a next date, like not leaving you just like in the ether of I have no idea when I'm going to see them again. Yeah. Because I have dated people that have done that earlier this year, and it feels horrible. Yeah. Like, it doesn't feel nice. And what I was really proud of myself, I even did communicate that to one person who had been on quite a few dates with, and I said like, look, I'd really like it if we just had a date in the diary for next time, because I don't feel happy when we don't, and the behavior didn't change. So that was really good that I communicated that it didn't change. So I was like, great, this is not gonna work.
That's wonderful that you had the courage to kind of communicate that, because I think that's a lot of people, and a lot of my users communicate this as well, is that sometimes when there's frustration, right, when there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, instead of giving that person the opportunity to shift their behavior, which you did, you said, this is what I need, this is what I'm desiring, and that takes a lot of courage. So I want to applaud you on that. But then being able to say that and then observe to see if they are able to adjust their behavior to what your need is. Yeah. And that's a green flag. Like, you're literally unlocking a green flag in that moment. But so many of us, we get into this phase of like, oh, he's not doing this or she's not doing this. What an ick. And then we completely drop the connection. And that's not fair either. Like,
you've not given them the chance.
Yeah. Give them the opportunity to adjust. And that's what, growth looks like.
Yeah. No, completely agree. And I feel like that's what you learn though, the more you multi-date, you have those conversations, then you're like, okay, and now I feel comfortable to have it again if it came up again. And it's just really good. What are the key features of Clara for daters, and how do they help users track their dates more effectively?
Yeah. So first of all, Clara is as much information as you want to put in there, like whatever's helpful, it's available to do that. There's notes section, and we have a lot of users who really take advantage of that notes section and putting in what they're feeling, and then keeping track of like, okay, this person has this many siblings or blah, 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 like that kind of stuff as well.
That's clever.
Yeah.
I didn't think to use it for that, like their information. Yeah. Because I've heard people write that down.
Oh, yeah.
Which I've actually never done, but I feel like I do need to start just like noting like key things about them. Just, because it is easy to forget. And also what you've told them, what stories.
I'm terrible at that. And when you're multi-dating, because you use the word multi-dating, it's also roster dating or rotational dating or circular dating. I've heard different things. But sometimes it's hard to like keep track of what you communicated or what was communicated to you. Yeah. So that's a really great section to put everything in there. But for me, I like to log my prospects in probably like when I have the date booked, right? So when the date is booked, that's when I put it in. Some of my users and daters put it in earlier, but if they're putting it in earlier, just remember that the conversion to an in-person date sometimes is really tough. Yeah. So you might be putting in a prospect that you never meet, and just recognize that. But if you're a dater who gets fixated on that person really quickly, even before you meet them, then I would recommend you do put in that dater as soon as possible, because it does give you kind of some separation of like you did something, and it releases that anxiety of messaging so quickly over here. But anyway, so that's when I put in my prospects. And then once it's in there, you're logging their picture. So either a screenshot from the app or something that you saw somewhere else.
I do cartoon characters of what they look like.
Yeah, or you can do that. So you can do whatever you want to put in there. And they have little images too, where you met them. Because for me, that's important. I want to understand, okay, is Hinge working better for me, or Bumble, or in person? So where you put them. Their age, if you have their birthday, like you can just put in as much information as you want. And then you kind of pause on that and then wait for the date. So you go on the date, experience the date, enjoy the date, then come back, and then that's when you start logging it. So it'll say, when was the date? And the date was on like Friday. Where was the date? It was here, and you mark the location, which I love tracking this data because the dates that happen at Mexican restaurants always do best for me, because I enjoy having a margarita on a first date.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so I know that about myself. I also know dates on...
I love that.
Yeah, I also know that dates on like during the week are really bad for me, because I'm like so into work, and like I have my working out schedule, so I want to rush it, and I'm just not as fun on those dates. So that's another thing that I learned. But yeah, so that's one of it. And then you log your mood. How is your mood before the date, right?
That was a really interesting feature for me, because I went on one on a Friday and I just had really bad news that day. So like my score for going on the date was like really, really bad. I literally was like having to stop myself crying on the way there.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, maybe I should have rescheduled, but I felt like I couldn't because it was so last minute.
Yeah.
But that was a good note for me to be, actually the day was okay, and it did like cheer me up. So
that's
like,
good.
And then I said like, as I left the day, I felt way better. So that was
awesome.
nice. Yeah, it was good to see.
Well, and yeah, so you could actually note that is that your mood was uplifted, but vice versa. If your mood wasn't, then you can kind of understand, okay, well, this guy, whoever this was, and whatever the date was, I understand that my experience probably wasn't as best as it could have been, because I was coming into it with a lower mood anyway, right?
Yeah.
So logically you could say, maybe I should give this guy a second date, because I wasn't in a good headspace coming into it, right? Because then that's taking accountability and power when you're getting into the date. And then you go through the 10 sets of questions, which are the vibe check questions. And again, those questions are about those important foundational things, just to make sure you feel good. And they're yes or no. And the reality is, I never wanted to put like a C, because like a C, like he was hangry, right? Or whatever, because we don't want to give excuses, because that was always my problem, is like when I was on a date with someone that I was really attracted to, where I felt the chemistry was really strong, like I would ignore if he was rude to the people around me, or I would ignore that he didn't ask me a lot of questions, or I would ignore the fact that, you know, he was just never asking me like on a date right away and stuff like that. It wasn't obvious that he was into me. And that's why I wanted to make sure that those questions are yes, no, and you have to be honest with yourself. Now, I do have some daters who message me and say, hey, I want to go back and change my answers. And that's tough. Yeah, that's a tough one.
I think, no, you shouldn't though.
So that's...
because that's how you felt in the moment.
Yeah, so I had the product, I had when I was building the app, product pushed back on me, and they're like, well, the users are going to want to change their answers. But I felt strongly about like what you said, is that it's just a snapshot. It's a moment in time, and that's how you felt. And if you really feel strongly, then you should keep dating the person.
Yeah, that's what I don't get.
Ask
just
the questions
like,
again.
Yeah, just go on more dates so you can reverse the outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was my thought, but yeah, that's some of the feedback that I've got. But those are kind of the.
I don't think you should be able to change them. I think that's people like in denial. They're like, no, or is it because they want to? Because I was going to ask you this. Is it because they're nervous that the person might like go in the app and see their scores?
Well, I mean, they can't. So that's one thing. You can't see other people's scores. It's like your own personal diary. So there's no one going to be seeing it. And I have no intention of opening that up, because I think it's important that we have that safe space to reflect by ourselves. Like it's important. Yeah. But maybe there's a concern, and maybe if they're telling people about it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They'll say, what's the score?
They said like, oh, I track my dates with this app and it gives you like a score out of 10. I think that's the bit that makes people panic, because I did test this out on someone, I told them, and then they were really nervous about their score.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, I think they then shifted a bit. They were like, oh, I need to behave better on this date because I know that she's scoring it, which isn't obviously what you want. Then it's inauthentic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine someone saying to someone, maybe they've been on like, 6 dates at this point. It's getting like to that point where they might discuss exclusivity or something, and then they've said, oh yeah, I've scored our dates from the beginning, and they'd want to then see what they got for each date, and then I can imagine it would cause a lot of issues.
Well, but at that point, if you're feeling really good about the person that you're seeing after 6 dates, and you're feeling like you can be your authentic self, and you feel the need to share, which that's up to you whether or not, then there is that honesty that could occur, right? Yeah. Where, you can look at my journal and you can see and then maybe something comes up. Maybe one of the questions was like, are you uncomfortable with the conversation topics? And they wrote no. And then maybe your the guy that you're seeing, he asked like, what was the conversation? And then it gives you an opportunity to communicate, oh, well, I was actually really uncomfortable when you said this. And it brings a realization and a communication that was not communicated before, which is a good thing. It's a growth thing.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, but so for me, I never tell the guys that I'm tracking. Don't, because they don't, one, they don't get it, like, because they're not going to understand, like, what the questions are about. Most people, when you hear scoring, first thing they're going to be like, I'm a 10, right? Like, in terms of, like, looks. And it's like, no, that's not what this is about. Yeah.
It's about how you make me feel, really. Yeah,
it's about how you make me feel. And only in just that one snapshot of one date, right?
Yeah, it's not a lot of time at the end of the day.
No.
It'd be a few hours. Like, that's not a lot of time to score, like, someone's whole personality.
Exactly. And that's what it is. Like, it's a Clara vibe check score. You're literally scoring the vibe, right? Yeah. It has nothing to do with the person. The vibe with the person was a 5. The vibe with the person was a 10. That's it. Like, let's just recognize what that is. And then over time, maybe the relationship vibe over, a 3-month period is now averaging an 8, 9. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. I like it. I think it's great. I think it's really cool.
It's fun. I've been enjoying like listening to my daters and then figuring out what other features to kind of build out as we keep moving forward. Oh, that's another one is you can place where you are with the prospect in terms of category, so how you feel in the relationship. And it's self-reported, so you can change it like tryouts, which is like new and exciting. Yeah. Or you can move it down to committed, which like we're being, in a committed, whatever that looks like and however you define it. Or you can be like situationship territory, which is more like friends with benefits kind of thing, or whatever you want to do there. But you can play around with those kind of how you're wanting to categorize it as well.
Yeah. Have you noticed any trends or common patterns from the data collected by the app that might be helpful for Single Sounds listeners? How can we learn from the history of the US, I guess? US is going to be different than definitely UK. So I'm excited about all the data that we're going to pull from here. And honestly, even in the US, like California is obviously our biggest because that's where I'm from and live, and that's where a lot of my users are. Mm-hmm. But each area is different. So San Diego is going to be different than Los Angeles, and I assume that it's going to be different here as well. Yeah, you have to keep us updated on what you see. Exactly. Yeah, so I want to know. So no, definitely, and that data will come from you. But the reality is, every dater's journey is going to be unique. So I'm going to share all the trends and what that looks like. So for some of the US data, like Hinge is definitely the strongest in terms of converting to first dates. That's so interesting. However, Bumble actually converts into more second dates. So fewer first dates, but more second and third dates. That's really interesting. Right? So I think people are getting fewer matches, or not fewer matches, but maybe fewer first dates on Bumble. But then potentially the quality's higher. And that could be a thing. So that's one of the things that we see. We see Field is another, I don't know if it's here. Okay. It's quite big here. It's grown in popularity a lot, I'd say, over the last year to 6 months. Got it. So Field's another one where daters always actually become friends at the end. So the likelihood of like when you start a relationship through Field and then they end up friends at the end is a good thing. Like for them, it happens more. Whereas Hinge, Bumble daters, they cut. They're like, no, never seeing you again. Never seeing you again. We're no longer friends. Like we can't be friends anymore.
But those are some of the dating app ones. The conversions are for me, like my biggest goal in the next couple months is really trying to partner with some of these dating apps because I'd love to get the real numbers. Because that's the hardest part is converting. And I know you as a dater, I struggle with this, is converting online digital introductions into actual in-person dates.
I think it's harder than ever recently. So the last time I was on the apps using them properly was actually 2019.
Okay.
Because my story is very similar to you. I was with someone for 3.5 years and the breakup was shocking and something I didn't expect. Like my whole future changed based on that. So now I'm back and I'm like, wow, okay. And they're really different. I found that it was much easier to chat to people back then, like 5 years ago. People wanted to have conversations. If anything, I felt like the problem was I got pen palled too much. Whereas now people just don't want to talk, which I find really strange. Like if I get someone that replies, I'm like, oh, okay, wow, here we go. Yeah. Whereas I don't know, maybe that's different in the US, but
no, I mean, the likelihood of like actual getting replies, and this is where I would love to see the data from the actual dating apps because it's got to be really hard. Like how many messages we send out or likes we send out to actually having communication back and forth. I'm assuming those are very low.
I get matches. That's the thing. That's what's weird. I get a lot of matches, but then a lot of people just don't talk. And it's like, are we just collecting matches? Like I showed my Hinge to someone recently and they were like, wow, you've got like I had over 100 matches. And they were like, oh, they had like 20. And I was like, what? No, none of them are speaking to me though. So it's not impressive.
Those are some of the numbers that it's really hard for daters to see because, and I feel like non-daters don't understand that either. People who haven't been on dating apps, you don't recognize the amount of volume and time, like, cause you actually went through those people, you looked at their profiles and you matched with them. Like it was intentional.
Exactly.
And now you're not even
having like 1%.
And you're not even having communication with them. And that's what's really tricky. And especially people, because it is tied to our mental health because it's romantic, like the fact that we're not getting replies, it can be really harmful to our mental health. Like, wait, like I was so excited about this person. I read through his profile. He matched me. I got excited about it. And now he's not even replying to me. Like that's hard. But yeah, that's part of those are the hard numbers. The numbers that I have with Clara are only from people putting it into people logging it into Clara to actually going on a date. And that number is still very low. So I'd love to see those kind of numbers improve. And my goal and hope with collaboration on dating apps is that I can kind of help be a supportive on how we can help daters actually go on dates.
That would be really interesting. I'd feel like, you're collecting the data to show that, especially if people are logging it in Clara, they really probably think that they've got a connection with that person or that the date is definitely happening. And then clearly if it's still the conversion rate is low, they're still dropping off even though probably something's been discussed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I actually listened to another podcast recently that said that if you plan the date in the app, apparently you're 65% more likely to go on the date.
Interesting.
Than if you get their number and plan it on like WhatsApp instead. Because apparently, I don't know. It was really shocking for me, but apparently because then they can start texting, they can like dwindle off that way. Rather than if they've got the plan from the app, you don't really text from the number. And the number's more just to be like, it's on the day so we can check in and be like, when are you getting there kind of thing.
Interesting. I personally have never done that. I've always gone to phone to like set up the date, and usually that's my kind of bridge into the date is like, hey, I'd love to tell you more about this, because they'll ask me about my siblings and I have a bunch. I'm like, oh, I'd love to tell you more about
over
the
drinks.
date. Here's my cell, like text me what you think, like text me the plan. So then I'd get them to go. But no, that would be an interesting stat. And I know there's a lot of dating apps who are trying to like get you to book the date first and then go. And I haven't ever tried those yet.
Neither.
I think
one just launched in the UK.
First Rounds on Me, I think, is the one that I was familiar with.
I've not heard that one. But yeah, it was socially dating or something like that. I saw it pop up and I saw that you literally you kind of calendar book in the app, which is interesting. So maybe that's where that idea is coming from, that you need to like solidify in the app and then you're more likely to go. I don't know.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just people trying to stay accountable to like what they're doing, and we need to do it. The reality, I mean, in the US, we have a loneliness epidemic. Like that's what's happening in the US, and we're literally not seeking social connections. We're feeling like we're messaging on these apps, or we're just collecting likes, as you said just a minute ago, and we're not actually going on like meeting people and having social connection. So that's the other thing about Clara, is like tracking your dates and seeing how long it's been since you've been on a date or like been out there. It's important for you to recognize, like, hey, it's been a while. Yeah,
I honestly, that stat was so funny. So I have like a close friend story where I keep my like really close friends updated with my dating life. It's like kind of like another journaling aspect for me. And I did the screenshot of the homepage, and obviously it says like, so I was going on a date and it said like only 5 days since I last went on a date. And I was like, wow, that makes me seem such a serial dater, just that number. But then I thought about if it was longer, I'd also probably feel like, not called out, maybe that's the wrong word, but it does make you think like, oh, okay, I haven't been on one for like a month, let's say. Then you'd be like, maybe I do need to prioritize this a bit more, or am I prioritizing this too much? If it literally says I went on a date 2 days ago, like, I think it's an interesting thing just to like see. It is then like the fitness tracker a little bit, being like, oh, I haven't been to the gym this week.
Exactly.
It's like flexing that dating muscle of, oh, I have been this week, so that's okay.
I mean, because there's so many people who say now that they're dating intentionally, like they say it. It's definitely out there. I don't know if it's as much in the UK, but it's definitely in the US, where like people are communicating, I'm dating intentionally. Dating intentionally means going on dates. Right? Like literally, if you can be on the apps and saying you're dating intentionally and never go on a date. That's not dating intentionally. That's starting step one. You're on the apps, you're trying to communicate, you're trying to get to dates, but you have to actually go on dates in order to date intentionally. And
it's just prioritizing it. That's how I feel about the term. It's just like, this is something I'm putting as a priority, and I'm going to actually go. Like we said earlier, I try and set a goal of 1 a week. I think that's a good, healthy goal.
No, I
without it being too intense.
That's my goal usually, is 1 a week. I haven't been on a date in now a couple of weeks, and it's really that number of like how many days it's been. It's really starting to like bug me.
Is it like over 20?
My rule is don't go over 3 weeks without a date. Like that's my general rule, and I passed that, and I was like, oh no. So I'm looking like I'm gonna download, or not, I have Hinge. I'm gonna like change my location, see if I can get some dates. You
should. Oh, honestly, I know. I'm sure loads would be well up for that if you say like, I'm from the US, I'm just here for a good time. Some dates,
please show me a pub or something. I don't know.
It's like looking to explore London. You should. It's a good city to date, I think. As much as like we like to shit on, I think, our own cities. I do think London's a good city to date in. There's a lot of options. There's so much to do.
Well, I'm open to exploring, so I'll definitely look at it. Do you have any like recommendations on what I should say as a good like Hinge prompt or something? Like lead with the US. I'm only
I would. I fell for it recently. That's why I'm saying, because someone said like, I've just moved from the US and I want someone. I think it was like, I want to meet people with like good communication, like, and in a setting with good food and good drinks or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, that's fun. Like, oh, I can show you somewhere that's good. Like a good time. So it's fun.
I'll put that in there. My brother's also here with me. He's 20 years old. So I'm just being like, and if you have a younger sister.
Do you guys have the app Double?
The app Double.
Have you heard of it? Oh, it's quite big over here. It's like new. You sign up with a friend. And then you both have to like match another set of friends.
Oh man.
And then they put you all in a group chat together, all 4 of you, and then you plan the date. So I've got one potentially, I mean, if it actually happens, I'm a bit suspect if we can actually get 4 people to come on a date, but
that's ambitious.
We've meant to be having one in a couple of weeks, and I'm really excited about it, because I just think it'll be such an interesting dynamic as a first date to be. But it shows you on the app who matched who, so it's clear like who's kind of like interested in who. It's not like you have to figure it out on the date. But then I was thinking like maybe you'd actually find the friend like more attractive. It's such an interesting concept. So
okay,
you can sign up to that.
That'll be fun. I'll try that. I haven't heard of that one, and that would be interesting. I can't even imagine. It would be really weird with my brother there too. But it'll be fun. I don't know, an experience, right?
Yeah, but you're gonna have. That's what's quite clever actually. So I didn't realize when I just just signed up with one friend, but you can sign up with like as many friends as you want. So they could be like different genders and different ages.
Oh, cool.
So like a lot of people do have different gendered friends on there. So then if you had like, a guy, like your brother, then obviously someone else might have like a female friend, like a guy might have a female friend that like you could go on a date with.
That's cool. All right,
cool.
so that's my goal for lunch, is to just sit there and convince my brother to do this with me, because I think that would be really fun.
It's funny.
Yeah.
People are quite active on that app too, so you might
that
find
would
it's
be a
quite
fun
like
story
instant
too.
Yeah, exactly. I think honestly so much of these things I just try them because I think they're like fun to try and just different, and it just makes dating a bit more fun, doesn't it?
That's the thing. It does get hard sometimes. Like it's because you're dating intentionally and you're doing it. It can be exhausting. But if you can find the fun stuff out of it, that's great. And then also look at your progress. Like you went on a date, even if it's a bad date. Like you experienced a new restaurant, right? Yeah. Or you tried a new dish, or you had a new area. So like try to focus on the positive things too, and the fact that you're actually making a social connection. You didn't stay home. You didn't like self-isolate, and you were working out new muscles. Like trying to focus on those positive things are really important, and then trying to spice it up with these new dating apps.
These new things. Okay, so how has creating and using Clara for Daters influenced your views on dating and relationships?
So for me, I had a bad boy problem. I always like got attracted to the guy who was more on the bad boy kind of space. I'm a people pleaser, anxious attachment style kind of person. Hopeless romantic.
Same.
I literally have a dog named Mr. Darcy. So
no way.
Oh yeah. No.
That's so British of you.
Pride and Prejudice. Like you guys did it right.
We love it.
I'm so excited about Bridgerton. Like,
good. You watched that? I was just about to ask. I was we're obsessed.
I'm a hopeless romantic. But yeah, all those things like makes me really vulnerable to a bad boy kind of persona. Yeah. Right? And it sucks because
someone to take you on a ride, basically.
Yeah. And it's thrilling and it's exciting and oh my gosh. And having that and going through the experience of dating a bad boy and getting like my heart broken by a bad boy, like it's not a fun ride. Like it hurts. That crash at the end is not a fun one. And then seeing what real relationships and what real connections can be and how good they feel, right? Like that's another thing that I was just trying to figure out. How do I make myself understand that and learn that? And with Clara tracking it now, I can really see that. Like I go on a date with a guy, maybe I meet him on Hinge, and maybe and this is a true story. This is a guy that I met February of last year. Met a guy on Hinge. He's not necessarily my type. Like he's cute, but he's not like that bad boy that I'm used to kind of looking at him. Like he looks really friendly. And I'm like, okay, well, he looks friendly and cute. So I'm going to go on a date with him. And I go on a date and he's super nice and asks me great questions and all that fun stuff. And I have a good time, but there's like not a spark, right? Not like, oh man, he didn't like, give me the Mr. Darcy kind of look or whatever that looks like. I don't know.
Or they're just butterflies.
Yeah, there wasn't that. So I was like, I felt good after the date. Yeah. And then afterwards I logged the date in Clara and it says a 10. And I'm like, well, Jillian, you should probably give this guy another shot, right? Like, let's try to see where this goes. I ended up going on like 6 or 7 dates with this guy because every time I felt really good leaving it. My mood was good. I was looking forward to seeing him. And I started feeling like, okay, wait, this is what a really good relationship connection feels like. Yeah. And it ended up not working out because he ended up moving and it just didn't work out. But I actually really started getting really attracted to him over the period of time too. Like Clara would ask you, is there a quality about your date that you found attractive? And I was like, I'm so glad, Clara, you asked me that and not like, when do you think he's hot, right? Because his eyes were super attractive. And when he was happy, they were very expressive. And I focused on that instead of like, I don't know, does he have 6-pack abs or whatever that looks like in a silly whatever way. But yeah, so it's actually helped me in terms of behavior shift and who I'm choosing to date. Like now people ask me like, what's your type? And I used to say, oh, like bad boys. But now I'm like, no, I actually have a type that if they're kind, if they're considerate, if they're communicating, like I don't have a type. Those qualities are what I'm looking for. And now I know that because of Clara, and I can hold myself accountable to finding those qualities because I'm tracking every time with Clara.
Yeah. That makes complete sense. I haven't tracked like loads of my dates yet, but I'm really excited to like build it up, because I do think, so what I do on my old Excel sheet, which I think I will bring into Clara now you've talked about the notes section a bit more. I didn't think about using it that way, but I always write a lessons learned, like box.
Yeah.
So especially it's really helpful for me if it doesn't work out, I can still be positive about it and be like, this is what I've learned about either myself or my dating style or just like what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what you can bring into it as well. Just being like, yeah, okay, you know, it might then drop into like, what's the section called where it's like cut? Is it cut?
Cut.
Yeah. Just like no longer. But
Yeah.
you could then still look into it and be like, oh, actually, this is what I learned from those experiences.
Well, and so that's another way that I use the app is like, so I told you it's been like over 3 weeks since I've been on a date, and I've been really frustrated because I wasn't able to convert a lot of the dates. And we had Memorial Day weekend in the US. So I was like, maybe it's a holiday, whatever. But anyway, I had a guy who I was dating, I feel like the middle of last year. He texted me and was reaching out. He's like, hey, just wanted to check in with you. I saw you on Bumble and was thinking about you. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, who is this guy again? Like, maybe I should, consider going out with him. He's obviously looking for a lead-in to like go out again.
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe I should. It's been a couple weeks, but I went, and Clara, I had logged him, went back to his in cut, went back to his profile, looked at the dates and looked at my notes. And I was like, wait, no, this was not a good guy. Like, I'm glad I cut this guy. There was no reason to pick this back up, right?
Yeah, that's so good.
So then because I had that record, it was easy for me to be just like, yeah, I'm not going to re-engage with this guy.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have it, I definitely, because I was feeling lonely, because I was feeling like I hadn't been on a date in a while, I would pick it back up and try. But it wasn't a good thing for me. So having that record really helped.
Yeah. Also, this will save a lot of friends, a lot of time, because the amount of friends that I have to say, do you not remember all these terrible things? Because I remember them. Do you not remember them? Like, have you just wiped that was a terrible first date or second date? Or, I feel like that would be so helpful for people to look back and realize like what they wrote.
Yeah.
Well,
and that's the other thing I find value with Clara is, so I have a best friend and then I have my sister, and in my last relationship and even now, it's really hard for me to tell the negative things to them when it's happening. Like, it's because I don't want them. You don't want
to, because otherwise they won't want to meet them, or they'll just remember it all the time.
Exactly. So it's hard to be honest sharing with your closest friends and family when you're dating someone new in those early dating stages, because you're not sure where it's going yourself and you don't want to get their opinion yet. But you should be honest with someone, and the reality is, because it's not a person, like, be honest in Clara, like be honest there, and that's what I'm doing. So now I don't have to necessarily like share, well, he was kind of rude in this aspect, right? Instead, I'm going to address it in Clara, say he was rude, address it with the guy, and if he's able to change his behavior, then it all works out. And then I don't have to, poison the well when it comes to like my sister and my best friend, like knowing that stuff. So that's another kind of element that I would say has really helped me with using Clara as a personal dater.
Yeah. No. I like it. I think it'll be really helpful like later on. I'm excited to collect all this data.
And definitely in the what you learn section, like for yourself, definitely put that in notes. That's what I do. So after I close the relationship, if it doesn't work out,
that's when I do it. I only do it when it's like finalized.
So when I change it to that, I put one last note and I add all that stuff. So this is what happened, this is how I felt, and I put that all in notes so that it's all collected in under the record.
And you can look back if they do reappear, because that does happen more frequently than you'd like.
Well, and also it gives frame of reference to the guys that didn't work out. Like, I've been ghosted, and I've definitely been ghosted in the last 54 dates. And one of the guys,
same. Even in 9, I've been ghosted. Shocking.
Exactly. Like, people ghost. Like, it is what it is. But in that, you're so hurt in the moment. But now I look back at the guy, and I'm like, I didn't even really like him.
Yes.
Like, your emotions are kind of gone already, and you're looking back, and you're like, wait, I didn't really like him. Like, that was like, it was so intense when it happened. I felt so shitty when it happened. But then now you're like looking at it and you're like, it wasn't that big of a deal, Jillian. It's like your brain starts coming back.
I think it's just a rejection. It's an ego.
That's true.
Like, hit, isn't it? That's what really, and just not having closure sucks. I do just think it's so much kinder to write a message just to say like, hi, I'm not feeling this connection.
Yeah.
You can get over that in a day. Like literally, that happened to me recently, and I was like, just wrote the message back being like, thanks for being honest, wish you all the best, you know. Over, sad, literally for like probably not even an hour. Whereas the ghoster, you just don't know when it's going to come back. So like for 2 weeks, I was probably like checking my phone, like I had to like delete his number so I didn't see his name anymore, put him in archive, but then you're looking for that one, you know, on WhatsApp, and it's horrible. Like it's just so awful, and it just gives you so much anxiety.
But it's like sugar. Honestly, this is what I compare it to this. You know, when you go on, you're eating sugar for like the holidays and you're eating all the Christmas cookies, and those first couple weeks after, and you're like, I'm not going to eat sugar. Yeah. It's hurting. It's painful. Like you're trying to get it. You're looking at it. You're seeing it everywhere, right? And you're still saying no. It goes away. Yeah. The feeling goes away, and it does with guys too. But you do have to like, and girls, but you do have to like block, delete, like don't engage, do all the things, and then just grin and bear it for a bit, and then it'll calm down. I promise it'll calm down.
Yeah, well, you'll date someone else and you'll be like, this is much healthier anyway. That's what happened with me. And I was like, oh yeah, that was all red flags anyway. I just probably wasn't picking up on. Exactly. So it's not even that surprising I got ghosted.
Yeah, and yeah, ghosting is tough, and we shouldn't do it. It's tough all the way around, but just we try not to take it personal, and that's the thing when you're multi-dating, it's easier to to understand that, and when you're tracking your dates too, it's easier too, because it's like, oh well, that didn't work out, like let me keep going. Yeah,
and that's what I found. I've never actually done like multi-dating until this year, and it was just something I really wanted to try because I've heard other people's stories of how, you know, it does help with anxious attachment a lot as well. And that is why, because you don't get fixated on one person. And also I've been much slower when I've dated people, which I think is really helpful for the hopeless romantic side of things. Like you said, like I do, you know, actually only have time for one date a week because I'm busy.
Exactly.
So that really helps, because I think otherwise you fall into the trap of trying to see someone like day after day after day, and I've done that before, and it's, again, that's not healthy either. So you do this slow, like, you know, introduction.
And you should try to keep the pace at a 1 date a week pace. Like if you like someone, especially, I know as an anxious attachment person, you're already looking at this stuff, but as for me, like if you're controlling the pace and saying no, I'd rather just go on 1 date a week, that's better. Like get it, have a slow burn.
Exactly. And that's what it really helps with, I think. And then the tracking also shows you how many you're doing. So if the app literally says like you went on a date 1 day ago and it's the same person, you'd then see it and be like, wait a minute, wait a minute, this is not slow.
Yeah, let's give it some thought. I'm intentionally being slow. Wait, no, I'm not.
Okay, we're gonna wrap up with one more question. Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who is struggling to find the right person to date?
I think don't focus so much on the big thing. It's like, it's so hard. Like I need to find that one person. Like it's such a weight. Instead, focus on dating, just the one date at a time. Like one connection at a time. Recognize that like each connection is something that you're learning from, and it's special, and it's something that's growing, and it is getting you closer to that person, even though it doesn't feel like it. Again, going back to like big goals, like you can't have like the hot summer bod after one workout. Like you have to have it over time. Every workout, it's going to be different. Some workouts are going to be bad, some are going to be great, and at the end of the day, you're feeling stronger. Even though you don't look like that person that you want to look like yet, you're feeling stronger over time. So don't focus on that big end goal, just focus on those connections in the moment, and it'll get closer. Like I've been on 54 dates in the last year. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. That's 1 date a week, right?
I really don't think it's that much.
It's not that many. It's not. And I've gotten so much stronger in what I'm looking for, and I feel very much closer to finding that person. Even though I haven't met that person yet, I feel a lot closer because I know myself a lot better, and I know what I'm looking for a lot more.
And you've had fun with it too. You know, you've learned the margarita thing. I think that's so funny. And it's also something nice to bring into your future dates, being like, I feel best when I have a margarita in my hand. Like that's a really nice prompt. Like you can take that, literally put it in.
Good margarita though.
Yeah, not a bad one.
Well, and that's been part of the fun, right? Is like a lot of this stuff you can actually use in terms of like flirty stuff, but to your point, because I will say like margaritas are the fun stuff. So choose a margarita place in your neck of the woods that I would love to try. Yeah. And then it's like a challenge. So then they have to like, oh my God, am I going to find the best place?
It's such a good prompt because it's such an easy thing for someone if they are intentional about taking you out in person. Yeah. They can be like, I know a great spot. Yeah. Like, I'd love to take you here. Yeah. Perfect. Easy.
It's fun.
Yeah. I love it. Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. No, I had so much fun talking with you. I love talking to other daters because
it makes you feel like you're all in it together as well. Like,
we are.
Collective. Yeah.
We're going to be okay. We are going to be
okay.
We're
fine. And it's fun. That's my whole motto of the podcast as well. Like the whole idea is we're trying to make dating fun again, and just, like it is tough and you can't sugarcoat it and be like, it's always going to be a great time, but you can do things. There's tools like Clara to help, you know?
Exactly.
Make it better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back next week with the usual format of a single of London, and I hope you have a great week, especially if you come find me at Glastonbury. If not, do come to the live show in July. See you next Tuesday. Bye.